Deep work begins with a bold claim from Cal Newport. The ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks is becoming increasingly rare and, at the same time, increasingly valuable. That combination makes deep work a superpower in the modern economy. While most people live in a state of constant interruption, the person who can concentrate deeply gains a serious advantage. Newport is writing in a world shaped by email, social media, open offices, endless notifications, and a culture that rewards visible busyness more than meaningful output. Many people feel productive because they are constantly responding, checking, updating, and multitasking. But the book argues that this mode of work often produces shallow results. It keeps people occupied, but it does not always help them create anything truly valuable. Deep work is Newport's term for professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive abilities to their limit. This kind of work creates new value, improves skill, and is hard to replicate. It is the kind of effort behind writing a great book, solving a difficult problem, building a complex system, mastering a new field, or producing work that actually moves your career forward. The opposite is shallow work. Shallow work includes tasks that are logistical, reactive, and often easy to repeat. It includes constant emailing, administrative tasks, quick meetings, scattered communication, and work done while your attention is fragmented. These tasks are not always useless, but they rarely lead to major breakthroughs or deep skill development. This is why Newport's argument matters so much. He is not merely giving productivity advice. He is describing a major shift in how value is created. In a noisy world, attention is now a competitive asset. The people who can protect it, train it, and direct it toward meaningful effort will often outperform those who remain trapped in distraction. The book also pushes against a common illusion that being busy means being productive. A person can spend all day switching between messages, updates, and small requests and still finish the day with nothing substantial accomplished. Deep work challenges that pattern. It says real progress often requires sustained concentration, not constant activity. What makes this opening idea so powerful is that it gives a name to something many people already feel. They sense they are working all the time but not producing their best work. They feel mentally scattered, overstimulated, and pulled away from anything that requires real thought. Newport explains why that happens and, more importantly, why it matters. His deeper message is that focus is no longer optional for ambitious people. If you want to do important work, learn difficult things quickly, and create something meaningful, you must develop the ability to go deep. In the world of this book, success belongs less to the constantly connected and more to the deliberately concentrated. Cal Newport argues that deep work matters because it is one of the clearest ways to create real value in a knowledge economy. If your job depends on thinking, learning, building, analyzing, writing, solving, or creating, then your ability to work deeply directly affects the quality of your output. This is important because modern work culture often hides the real source of value. People are praised for responsiveness, availability, and visible busyness. They answer messages quickly, attend many meetings, maintain a strong online presence, and stay constantly reachable. These behaviors can make someone look engaged, but Newport insists that looking busy is not the same as producing something meaningful. Deep work creates value because difficult thinking usually requires uninterrupted time. Writing a strong strategy, designing a great product, understanding a complex concept, creating a meaningful piece of content, or solving a tough problem cannot usually be done in 5-minute fragments. These tasks demand mental depth. Newport points out that the modern economy rewards people who can do two things well: quickly master hard things and produce at an elite level, both in terms of quality and speed. Deep work supports both. It helps you learn faster because concentration improves comprehension and retention. And it helps you produce better work because sustained attention leads to deeper insight and fewer careless errors. This principle is especially powerful because it makes focus feel economically relevant, not just personally satisfying. Deep work is not only a nice habit, it is a career advantage. In a crowded and competitive environment, people who can generate high-value work through concentration become much harder to replace. Newport also emphasizes that deep work is difficult precisely because it requires resisting what modern culture normalizes. Constant checking feels easier. Shallow communication feels safer. Reactive work gives quick hits of completion. Deep work, on the other hand, can feel mentally demanding and emotionally uncomfortable. It asks more of you, but that is exactly why it produces stronger results. The practical lesson here is that you must start evaluating your work differently. Instead of asking only whether you stayed busy, ask whether you created something valuable. Did your effort move an important project forward? Did it improve a skill? Did it solve a meaningful problem? Did it produce work that matters? Newport wants the reader to understand that value is rarely built through fragmented attention. Major progress usually happens when the mind goes beyond the surface. In that sense, deep work becomes both a professional discipline and a strategic advantage. The deeper message is simple. If you want stronger results, stop letting the easiest tasks dominate your day. Protect time for the kind of focused effort that creates value others cannot easily imitate. One of the most practical strengths of deep work is that Cal Newport does not only praise focus. He also explains why shallow work takes over so easily. Shallow work is attractive because it feels productive without requiring much mental strain. It is usually easier, more social, and more immediately rewarding than deep work. When you answer email, reply to messages, check notifications, browse updates, attend meetings, and handle simple logistics, you often get a fast sense of movement. Something is happening. You feel involved. You feel needed. You can point to tasks completed. But Newport warns that this sense of motion can be misleading. Shallow work often dominates because it is visible. Other people can see your responsiveness. They can see your presence online. They can see you in meetings. Deep work is quieter. It often happens alone, without immediate public proof. In many workplaces, that makes shallow work easier to justify and deep work harder to protect. There is also a psychological reason shallow work spreads. It is easier to start. It requires less resistance. When a task feels mentally hard, many people unconsciously escape into smaller tasks that feel manageable. They tell themselves they are still working, and in one sense they are. But they may also be avoiding the effort that would create real progress. Newport wants the reader to see this trap clearly. It is possible to spend entire days doing things that feel necessary while never touching the work that matters most. This is one of the most common forms of modern professional drift. The book does not say shallow work has no place. Some administrative work is unavoidable. Communication matters. Coordination matters. But Newport argues that shallow work must remain in its place. The danger comes when it becomes the default mode of your life. This principle matters because it forces a harder question. Are you structuring your days around what is important or around what is easiest to react to? That question reveals a lot about why so many people feel overwhelmed yet underfulfilled. The practical takeaway is to become more conscious of where your time goes. Notice how often you switch tasks. Notice how many hours disappear into low-value activity. Notice whether you are using busyness to avoid the discomfort of real concentration. Newport's deeper point is not just that shallow work exists. It is that shallow work expands aggressively unless it is deliberately contained. If you do not set boundaries around it, it will quietly consume the time and energy needed for more meaningful work. That is why deep work requires more than good intentions. It requires active resistance against a culture and a nervous system that both tend to prefer the shallow by default. A deeply hopeful message in deep work is that concentration is not a mysterious gift that only a few people have. Cal Newport treats focus like a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained. This matters because many people assume they are simply bad at concentrating. They say they have a short attention span, or that deep focus is unrealistic in their line of work, or that they just work better while multitasking. Newport pushes back on all of that. His argument is that if you constantly practice distraction, you become better at distraction. If you always check your phone at the first sign of boredom, switch tabs when a task becomes difficult, or interrupt yourself every few minutes, you are training your mind to resist depth. Your brain begins expecting novelty instead of concentration. But the opposite is also true. If you repeatedly return your mind to one demanding task and keep it there, you begin strengthening your ability to focus. The longer you practice sustained attention, the more natural it becomes. This is one of the most empowering ideas in the book because it shifts the conversation from identity to training. The question is no longer, am I naturally focused? The better question becomes, what kind of attention am I rehearsing every day? Newport wants readers to understand that the mind adapts to what it repeatedly does. This means digital habits matter. Work habits matter. Leisure habits matter. If every free moment is filled with quick stimulation, your tolerance for quiet concentration weakens. Deep work becomes harder not because you are incapable, but because your mind has been conditioned for shallowness. The practical lesson is that building focus requires practice. You have to deliberately spend time in concentration, even when it feels mentally uncomfortable at first. You have to resist unnecessary switching. You have to let boredom exist sometimes without immediately escaping it. This section is especially useful because it removes fatalism. Newport is not saying that deep work is easy. He is saying it becomes more possible when treated like training rather than mood. You do not wait to magically feel focused. You build the ability by repeated use. There is also a larger implication here. If focus is trainable, then attention becomes one of the most important personal assets you can deliberately improve. It affects learning, productivity, creativity, and even peace of mind. Newport's deeper message is that your mind is being shaped by your habits whether you notice it or not. If you want a stronger ability to go deep, you must start living in a way that reinforces concentration instead of constantly undermining it. One of Cal Newport's most useful insights is that deep work rarely happens consistently through willpower alone. If you simply hope to focus when the day begins, shallow demands will usually take over. That is why he emphasizes rituals. You need systems that reduce decision-making and make concentration more likely. This is important because good intentions are too fragile in a distracted environment. If you do not decide in advance when you will work deeply, where you will do it, and how you will protect that time, then email, meetings, social media, and random tasks will quietly fill the space. Rituals matter because they signal seriousness. They tell your brain that this is not casual time. It is focus time. Newport encourages readers to think deliberately about the logistics of depth. Where will you work? For how long? What rules will guide the session? What will you remove to reduce distraction? These details may seem small, but they are powerful. A designated place, a clear start time, a limited session length, and a specific goal can dramatically improve your ability to concentrate. The mind settles more easily when the structure is already set. Newport also understands that different people may need different philosophies of deep work. Some can spend long stretches in total isolation. Others may need shorter but regular blocks. Some may build entire days around depth. Others may carve out smaller periods consistently. What matters most is not copying one rigid model, but building a routine that makes deep work repeatable. The practical lesson is to stop treating focus like something that should happen spontaneously. Design for it. Put it on the calendar. Create a work ritual. Decide how to begin. Decide how to end. Decide what is allowed and what is not. This principle is valuable because it makes productivity less emotional. Instead of asking every day whether you feel like working deeply, you create a structure that guides you into it. Over time, the ritual lowers resistance because the mind learns what to expect. There is also a dignity in this idea. It treats meaningful work as something worthy of preparation. If something matters, it deserves protected conditions. Newport's deeper point is that a distracted life does not become focused by accident. Deep work must be made concrete. The more clearly you build rituals around concentration, the less likely you are to lose your best hours to randomness. One of the more surprising lessons in deep work is Cal Newport's defense of boredom. In modern life, boredom is treated like a problem that should be eliminated immediately. The moment a person waits in line, sits alone, or feels a pause in stimulation, they often reach for their phone. Newport argues that this habit is quietly damaging the ability to concentrate. Why? Because when you constantly escape boredom, you train your brain to expect stimulation on demand. You teach yourself that any moment of low stimulation should be interrupted. This makes deep work much harder because real concentration often includes moments of friction, silence, and mental strain. If your brain is trained to flee discomfort instantly, it will resist the very conditions needed for depth. This is why Newport says you must learn to tolerate boredom. Not because boredom is exciting, but because it strengthens your ability to remain present without constant novelty. That ability is critical for serious work. This principle matters because many people think the problem is only digital distraction during work hours. Newport shows that the issue is deeper. Your off-hours habits also shape your mind. If every spare second is filled with quick entertainment, your ability to sit with one difficult task weakens. The practical lesson is simple and powerful. Stop reaching for instant stimulation every time your mind slows down. Let some moments remain quiet. Let your attention rest. Let your brain experience pauses without always being fed something new. Newport is not arguing against all entertainment. He is arguing against reflexive stimulation as a default setting. There is a difference between choosing leisure intentionally and using constant novelty to avoid any internal stillness. This section is especially valuable because it reveals that focus is about more than what happens at a desk. It is also about how you condition your mind throughout the day. The person who can be alone with their thoughts, wait without distraction, and stay present during mental discomfort is much better prepared for deep work. There is also a larger philosophical point here. A life ruled by constant stimulation becomes thin. It weakens patience, reflection, and depth. Newport is quietly suggesting that reclaiming concentration may also help restore a richer relationship with thought itself. His deeper message is that boredom is not always the enemy. Sometimes it is the doorway to stronger attention. If you want to work deeply, you must stop treating every quiet moment as something to escape. One of the most debated parts of deep work is Cal Newport's criticism of social media and digital tools. He does not say every online platform is evil or that every person must disconnect completely. His argument is more strategic and, in many ways, more demanding. He says you should stop assuming that every potentially useful tool deserves a place in your life. Most people evaluate digital tools with weak standards. If a platform offers any benefit, they keep using it. If it helps them network a little, stay informed a little, or stay entertained a little, they assume it must be worth it. Newport challenges this mindset. He asks a more serious question. Does this tool significantly support the things I value most, or is it mainly fragmenting my attention? This is powerful because many tools are not neutral in their effect. Even if they offer some benefits, they may also train distraction, encourage compulsive checking, and erode the ability to sustain focus. Newport argues that knowledge workers and creators should be much more selective. He encourages what he calls a craftsman approach to tool selection. A craftsman does not adopt every shiny new tool just because it exists. They choose tools carefully based on whether those tools strongly support what matters most in their craft. This principle matters because social media often does more than consume time. It consumes attention. It creates mental fragmentation even after the app is closed. It fills the mind with noise, comparison, and the urge to check again. That makes deep work harder. The practical lesson is to stop asking whether a tool is generally popular or mildly useful. Ask whether it is worth the cost to your attention. Ask whether it serves your real goals strongly enough to justify its pull on your mind. Newport is pushing for intentionality here. If something damages your ability to focus, then its hidden cost may be higher than you think. A small habit of checking can quietly weaken the very skill that makes your best work possible. This does not require extreme digital purity for everyone, but it does require honesty. Which tools genuinely support your priorities, and which ones mainly keep you reactive and distracted? Newport's deeper message is that a focused life cannot coexist easily with careless digital adoption. If you want more depth, you must become more ruthless about what gets access to your attention. Not everything that is available deserves a place in your mind. A major theme running through deep work is that attention is not a trivial resource. It is one of the most important assets a person has. Cal Newport wants readers to stop treating their attention casually, because the quality of attention shapes the quality of work, learning, and even life itself. This matters because attention is constantly under attack. Notifications, platforms, messages, meetings, entertainment, and internal urges all compete for it. Most people live as though this is normal and unavoidable. Newport agrees that distraction is common, but he refuses to treat that as harmless. Attention determines whether you can think clearly, finish important tasks, understand difficult ideas, and produce something meaningful. If your attention is repeatedly broken, your work becomes fragmented. If your work becomes fragmented, your results often become weaker. But the issue goes even deeper than output. A distracted mind also tends to feel more scattered and less satisfied. Newport suggests that concentration is not only productive, it is also meaningful. When you focus deeply on something important, you often feel more engaged with your work and more connected to a sense of craftsmanship. This is why attention must be protected. Not merely managed, but protected. It is too valuable to be given away automatically. The practical lesson is to become far more deliberate about what gets your focus. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Set communication boundaries. Stop letting the first demand of the day decide how your mind will be used. Create environments where sustained attention is possible. Newport is asking for a mindset shift here. Instead of treating distraction as a small inconvenience, treat it as a real cost. Every interruption leaves residue. Every switch takes time to recover from. Every habit of fragmented attention makes depth less likely. This principle is especially powerful because it gives moral weight to a skill that modern culture often treats lightly. In a world that encourages endless accessibility, protecting your attention may feel almost rebellious. But it is also one of the most practical acts of self-respect. Newport's deeper message is that your life becomes, in part, what you pay attention to. If your attention is always scattered, your experience of work and growth becomes scattered too. But if you learn to direct attention with intention, you create the conditions for stronger work and a richer inner life. In this book, attention is not just a tool. It is a form of power. And how you guard it determines a great deal about what you are able to create. One of the most refreshing parts of deep work is that Cal Newport does not argue for endless work. In fact, he strongly supports downtime. He believes that deep work is most effective when it is balanced with genuine rest. This is an important contrast to hustle culture, which often glorifies constant effort without recovery. Newport argues that the brain needs periods of rest in order to operate at a high level. Downtime helps recharge attention, supports insight, and allows the subconscious mind to keep processing hard problems in the background. A person who never disengages may remain busy, but they often become mentally dulled. This principle matters because many ambitious people believe the answer to better results is simply more hours. But Newport suggests that what matters more is the intensity and quality of focused effort, followed by real recovery. He also points out that clear boundaries around work can improve concentration during work itself. When you know your work time is limited and intentional, you are often more likely to use it seriously. Endless work hours can create the illusion of commitment while encouraging shallow drift. This is why Newport often emphasizes shutdown rituals and the importance of being done for the day. When work ends, let it end. Stop carrying loose mental residue into every part of your evening. Give your brain space to recover. The practical lesson is that productivity is not just about doing more. It is about structuring life so that your best mental energy is available for what matters most. That means deep focus while working and real detachment while resting. This section is especially valuable because it protects the reader from misapplying the book. Deep work is not about becoming a machine. It is about becoming more intentional. The goal is not exhaustion. The goal is meaningful output supported by sustainable habits. There is also a quality of life benefit here. A person who works deeply and then disconnects fully often feels more present, less scattered, and more satisfied. Their work time has weight, and their rest time has freedom. Newport's deeper point is that a strong life includes rhythm. Intense concentration and genuine rest strengthen each other. If you want to think deeply tomorrow, you need to recover honestly today. In that sense, deep work is not just a productivity strategy. It is a healthier model for living and working with purpose. Cal Newport is deeply critical of what might be called the cult of busyness. In many workplaces, people gain status by appearing constantly occupied. Fast email replies, full calendars, nonstop communication, and visible stress all become signals of importance. But deep work insists that these signals are often misleading. Busyness is easy to display. It is easy to measure. It creates social proof. Other people can see that you are doing things. But real productivity is harder to observe, especially when it comes from solitary concentration and long-term thinking. This creates a dangerous imbalance. People may start optimizing for what looks productive instead of what actually creates value. Newport wants readers to challenge this entire cultural pattern. A full inbox is not the same as meaningful progress. Constant meetings are not the same as insight. Quick responses are not the same as high-quality output. This principle matters because it helps explain why so many professionals feel exhausted but not deeply effective. They are rewarded for activity, not necessarily for impact. They become trapped in public-facing work that crowds out the private concentration needed for their best contributions. The practical lesson is to define productivity more honestly. What outcomes matter most in your role? What work actually moves things forward? What creates value instead of just signaling engagement? Newport is pushing for courage here because rejecting busyness culture often requires going against norms. It may mean being less instantly available. It may mean protecting time others expect you to leave open. It may mean producing more quietly and explaining your priorities more clearly. This is not always easy, but Newport argues it is necessary. If you do not define productivity for yourself, workplace culture will often define it in the shallowest possible way. There is also a personal dimension to this. Busyness can become emotionally addictive. It offers the comfort of movement without the vulnerability of truly difficult work. Newport wants the reader to notice when they are hiding in activity instead of engaging in craft. His deeper message is that meaningful work often looks less frantic than shallow work. It may be quieter, slower on the surface, and less publicly visible. But it is also more substantial. In the world of deep work, the goal is not to be seen working all the time. The goal is to create something important. And once you understand that difference, the entire structure of your day starts to look different. Although deep work is often discussed as a productivity book, one of its most meaningful ideas is the craftsman mindset. Cal Newport encourages readers to approach their work like craftspeople. That means caring deeply about quality, skill, and deliberate improvement instead of constantly asking what the world can immediately give them. This is important because modern career advice often emphasizes passion in a shallow way. People are told to follow their passion, but Newport suggests a different angle. Passion often grows through mastery. The more skill you build, the more meaningful work tends to become. Deep work is the method by which that mastery is developed. A craftsman mindset focuses attention on what you are producing and how well you are doing it. It asks, what can I build, improve, understand, and contribute at a high level? This mindset naturally aligns with deep work because quality craftsmanship requires concentration. This principle matters because it shifts the conversation away from constant self-consciousness. Instead of obsessing over recognition, comparison, or personal branding alone, Newport encourages readers to become absorbed in the discipline of doing excellent work. That tends to produce stronger careers and deeper satisfaction over time. The practical lesson is to take your work more seriously as a craft. Whatever your field, ask what excellence looks like. Ask what difficult skills matter most. Ask what kind of focused effort would make your output noticeably better. This idea is especially valuable in a distracted culture because craftsmanship requires patience. It requires repetition. It requires standards. None of those qualities thrive in an environment of constant interruption. Newport also suggests that deep work becomes easier when the work itself is seen as worthy. If you respect your craft, you are more willing to defend the conditions needed to do it well. There is a quiet dignity in this section. It reminds the reader that meaningful work is not built through frantic multitasking or endless visibility. It is built through careful, sustained effort. Newport's deeper message is that depth is not only efficient. It is honorable. It reflects a decision to do work well rather than merely do work fast or publicly. In that sense, deep work becomes more than a productivity strategy. It becomes part of a philosophy of craftsmanship, where the focused pursuit of excellence is one of the most satisfying and valuable ways to spend a working life. One of Cal Newport's most memorable ideas is that high-quality work is produced by spending time multiplied by intensity. In other words, hours matter, but the depth of concentration within those hours matters just as much, if not more. This principle is powerful because it explains why long workdays do not automatically lead to strong results. A person may spend 10 hours near a project while only giving it a fraction of their attention. Another person may spend 3 intensely focused hours and create far better work. The difference is intensity. Newport wants the reader to see that distracted work is diluted work. Every interruption lowers cognitive intensity. Every task switch reduces depth. Every habit of partial attention weakens the power of the time being spent. This matters because many people are trying to compensate for distraction by working longer. But if concentration remains fragmented, adding more hours often just adds more shallow effort. Newport argues that the better solution is to increase the quality of attention during the hours that matter most. The practical takeaway is to structure your work so that intense focus becomes possible. Protect blocks of time. Remove distractions. Define a clear target for the session. Measure progress by meaningful output, not just by time spent near a task. This idea also helps reduce guilt. Sometimes you do not need to work all day. You need to work deeply for a smaller number of hours. That shift can be incredibly liberating, especially for knowledge workers and creators. At the same time, Newport is realistic. Intense work is tiring. It cannot be done endlessly. That is why protecting a few strong hours of real concentration can be more powerful than trying to grind your way through scattered effort from morning to night. This principle matters for students, writers, entrepreneurs, programmers, researchers, and anyone whose output depends on thinking clearly. It reminds them that cognitive quality matters more than superficial time investment. Newport's deeper message is that performance improves when you stop confusing presence with intensity. Being around your work is not the same as engaging with it fully. In the end, deep work keeps bringing the reader back to the same truth. What matters is not only how long you work, but how deeply. When time and intensity come together, the quality of your results begins to change dramatically. A major practical lesson in deep work is that important work must be scheduled before reactive demands take over. Cal Newport knows that if you leave deep work to whatever time happens to remain, it often never happens. The day gets filled with messages, tasks, meetings, requests, and mental clutter. That is why he insists on proactive planning. If something important requires deep concentration, it must be protected in advance. It must be given a time, a place, and a boundary. This is a crucial insight because many people say their most important work is a priority, but their calendar tells a different story. Their schedule is built around reacting to other people's agendas. As a result, the work that matters most is pushed later and later until it becomes a source of stress and guilt. Newport wants readers to reverse that pattern. Put deep work first. Defend it. Treat it like a real commitment, not something optional that can be displaced by every incoming demand. This principle matters because deep work usually requires your best energy, and your best energy is limited. If you wait until the end of the day, you often get whatever attention is left after everything else has taken a piece of it. The practical lesson is very direct. Look at your week and decide where your most valuable concentration will happen. Block the time. Name the project. Make the expectation concrete. Do not rely on vague hope. Newport also understands that not every schedule is fully under your control. But even within constraints, deliberate planning creates more possibility than passive waiting. This section is especially useful because it translates the philosophy of deep work into real behavior. It is not enough to admire focus. You have to give it a place in your life before chaos claims the space. There is also a psychological benefit here. When deep work has a scheduled home, it becomes easier to trust the process. You stop carrying the vague anxiety that you should be doing important work somewhere in the background. You know when it will happen. Newport's deeper message is that priorities become real only when they enter the calendar. If you want more depth, stop hoping it appears naturally in a distracted world. Build it into your schedule before the shallow fills every opening. One of the most underrated parts of deep work is that Cal Newport is not only defending focus for professional reasons. He is also making a quieter argument about meaning. A life filled with concentration, craftsmanship, and purposeful effort often feels richer than a life dominated by distraction and fragmentation. This matters because many productivity discussions stay at the level of output alone. Newport goes further. He suggests that when you focus deeply on something worthwhile, you engage more fully with your own capacities. You enter a state where challenge and skill meet. Work becomes less empty and more absorbing. This idea echoes older traditions about craftsmanship, contemplation, and meaningful labor. Human beings often feel most satisfied not when they are passively entertained, but when they are fully engaged in something difficult and worthwhile. A distracted life, by contrast, can feel scattered and thin. Even when it is full of activity, it may lack depth. The mind becomes fragmented. The day gets consumed by noise. A person may feel busy but strangely disconnected from what they are actually building. Newport is not claiming that deep work solves every existential problem, but he is strongly suggesting that depth improves the texture of daily life. It creates a more serious and satisfying relationship with work and, by extension, with time itself. The practical lesson is that protecting focus is not only about ambition. It is also about dignity. It is about choosing a way of living that honors your attention and your ability to do something real with it. This section matters especially for people who feel drained by digital noise and shallow routines. It reminds them that the hunger for focus may actually be a hunger for a more meaningful mode of life. There is also a moral undertone here. To live deeply is to resist the forces that reduce human life to reaction, distraction, and surface-level engagement. It is to insist that your mind can be used for something better. Newport's deeper point is that a deep life is not merely productive. It is often more alive. When you spend time in serious concentration on something that matters, your days feel more substantial. They carry more weight. In that sense, deep work is not just a workbook. It is also a book about choosing depth over drift, attention over fragmentation, and meaning over constant mental noise. A striking implication of deep work is that most people will not fully embrace it. Cal Newport knows this. Deep work is hard. It requires discomfort, structure, discipline, and saying no to many things that modern culture treats as normal. That is exactly why it creates such a strong advantage. Most people will continue checking constantly. Most people will let meetings spread. Most people will confuse busyness with effectiveness. Most people will struggle to tolerate boredom. Most people will not build serious rituals around concentration. Newport is not saying this to sound superior. He is showing the reader where the opportunity lies. In a world where distraction is the default, discipline becomes distinctive. The person who trains depth is competing in a much smaller field. This matters because it reframes the difficulty of focus. The discomfort is not evidence that you are doing something wrong. In many cases, it is evidence that you are doing something uncommon and valuable. The practical lesson is to stop expecting deep work to feel normal in a distracted culture. Of course it feels unusual. Of course it requires effort. That is part of its power. This idea is motivating because it turns focus into a form of leverage. You do not always need to work more than everyone else. Sometimes you need to work more deeply than everyone else. A smaller number of high-quality, high-concentration hours can outperform a much larger amount of scattered effort. Newport wants readers to understand that the rarity of deep work is part of what makes it valuable. If everyone could do it easily, it would not offer the same advantage. But because most people remain trapped in shallowness, the person who goes deep can create outsized results. There is also a personal benefit in this mindset. Instead of feeling discouraged that deep work is hard, you can begin taking pride in the fact that you are training a rare skill. Difficulty becomes part of the path, not a reason to quit. Newport's deeper message is that modern life rewards those who can resist it intelligently. If you can build concentration where others surrender to fragmentation, you gain both a professional and personal edge. In the world of this book, the rarity of depth is not bad news. It is the opening. By the end of Deep Work, Cal Newport's message becomes clear. This book is not only about working harder or getting more done. It is about building a life organized around what matters most. Deep work is the method, but the deeper challenge is deciding that your attention, your craft, and your time deserve better than constant fragmentation. All the major ideas of the book point in the same direction. Focus is valuable. Distraction is costly. Shallow work expands unless constrained. Concentration is trainable. Rituals matter. Boredom strengthens attention. Digital tools should be chosen carefully. Rest supports depth. Quality work comes from sustained intensity. Meaning grows where attention is directed seriously. Together, these ideas form more than a productivity system. They form a philosophy of work and life. Stop allowing the easiest demands to control your days. Stop letting busyness replace substance. Stop giving away your attention as though it were cheap. Newport wants the reader to become someone who can learn hard things, produce important work, and live with more intention. That kind of life does not happen by accident. It must be designed. The practical takeaway is clear. Identify the work that matters most in your life. Protect time for it. Remove what weakens your focus. Train your mind to tolerate depth. Reduce shallow noise. Rest fully when work is done. Repeat the process until concentration becomes part of your identity. You do not need to become perfect overnight. But you do need to stop treating focus like a luxury. In a distracted age, it is one of the most valuable abilities you can build. This is what makes deep work so enduring. It speaks to a modern pain point with unusual clarity. People feel fragmented, overstimulated, and busy without producing their best work. Newport offers a direct response. Reclaim your attention and use it deliberately. In the end, the real promise of deep work is not merely better output. It is a better relationship with your mind, your craft, and your days. It is the chance to create something meaningful instead of spending your life reacting. And that is the final challenge of the book. If you want a stronger career, a clearer mind, and a more meaningful working life, then stop living at the surface. Build a life that makes depth possible and let your best work rise from there.